as a project manager of Upper Egypt sector in New Horizon, Egypt. Dr. Rasha Youssef developed and built her career through teaching English and soft skills to students. She had trained more than 15,000 students all over Egypt. She was the trainer's supervisor in Upper Egypt too. And she is TOEFL and IELTS holder. With great immense pleasure, I welcome you, ma'am, to the two-day international virtual conference. I'm really proud, and from bottom of my heart, I extend my warm welcome to each and everyone gathered here, and especially to the first speaker of the day, Dr. Rasha Youssef. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Doctor, and thanks to Dr. Farghese, and really so pleasure to be with you today. And good morning from Egypt. It's a great honor to Egypt to be a part from this great conference concerning literature. First of all, let me share my presentation. Just a minute. Can I share my presentation, please?
Yes, Dr. Rasha, you can share it.
Okay. So, do you see the presentation?
No. See, you'll have to share it from the third icon. Third button.
Is it okay now? Yes, I do share. I do share for the presentation, but does it appear?
Stop sharing and share it again. See, it's not seen, ma'am. You can just
trying to share it again.
Share it again. Yeah, that's better.
I'm trying to share it, by the way.
Dr. Rasha, could you just switch
Is it
on
okay now? Is it okay now? I'm sharing my screen. Is it okay now?
No. Yeah. Now we can see it.
Okay.
We can see it now.
Okay. First of all, as I told you before that, it's a great pleasure for me to be a part from this great conference concerning literature. And my topic today will talk about Chicanizma. Chicanizma, the Chicana feminist poetry movement in the contemporary American literature. Being of Mexican background, being Indian looking, being a female, coming from a working class background, and then becoming politicized in high school, that was my direction. I was a Chicana protest poet, a complete renegade, and I continue to write that way. This is quotation from Ana Castillo, Massacre of the Dreamers. But what will be the Chicano movement in poetry, and what does it mean? Mexican-American history and the struggle for equality and identity. Statistics concerning the composition of and socioeconomics of the American population depends on the American Bureau of the Census. The U.S. Census Bureau population reports that the Hispanic population has exceeded 50 million and represent more than half of the 27 million population increase in the last decade. The Hispanic population in the United States developed by 43% in the last decade, exceeding 50 million and representing 1 out of 6 Americans. Moreover, it predicts that by 2050, whites in America will become the minority and could make up 33% of the US population. The Mexican American civil rights movement later came to be known as the Chicano Movement. So, what will be the Chicano Movement? This is a Mexican American civil rights movement. It was a result of the politics of the 1960s. It includes a wide scope of issue, from the reclamation of land award to the rights of farm workers, to enhance education, voting and political rights. The Chicano movement also has exposed discrimination in public and private institutions. Early in the 20th century, Mexican American population or Mexican American citizen formed organization to protect themselves from discrimination. One of those organizations, the League of United Latin American Citizens, was formed in 1929. Chicano were an inside colonized population. Within the United States, they were socially, culturally, and economically subjected and regionally isolated by white Anglo-Saxon American. In brief, it can be said that Mexican became an oppressed racial group in the United States as a result of the extension of the American empire. In 19th century, in the late 19th century, the United States abandoned its century-long commitment, isolation, and became an imperial power. After the Spanish-American War, the United States exercised significant control over Cuba, annexed Hawaii, and claimed Guam and the Philippines as territories. American empire goes beyond the mass of American exception to place the United States within the wider context of the global historical forces, by the way, and that shaped the Western empires and the world. That fact has profoundly affected their political and scholarly status as a conquered people, beginning with the Texas Mexico War of 1936 and the U.S.-Mexico War of 1946. They have never considered a moral or a sacred issue by the United States society. The Chicano movement, and by the way, Chicano mean concerned with male, not female here. The Chicano movement made society aware of the injustice suffered by Mexican American in the United States and encouraged social change. The Chicano movement, which is known by Chicanos as El Movimiento in Spanish, was a cultural and political movement. The origin of the term Chicano, from where this word came, is not known. Even its definition differs. It has been recovered by Americans of Mexican ancestry to emphasize their descendant from colonial projects. Feminist movement. Is this a feminist movement compared with feminism, womanism, or what will be? The feminist movement, in general, feminist movement that emerged in the late 60s appeared to embrace all women who felt insulted by male-dominated. Feminists refused to acknowledge that they were inferior to men. Feminists expected equality. Unfortunately, this women's right was not comprehensive. American females ignored the condition of the Mexican and Indian descendant Spanish-speaking sibling. Feminist movement concerning with white female women, and feminist here ignores the condition of the Mexican and Indian descendant Spanish-speaking sibling, in America. So feminist movement is also known as the women's liberation movement or feminism. It refers to a series of campaigns for reforms on issues such as reproductive rights, domestic violence, maternity leave, equal pay, women's suffrage, sexual harassment, and sexual violence, by the way. All of these issues are classified under the label of feminism. The movements prioritized vary among nations and communities. Feminism, which is also concerned with female or white females, American females, divided into white feminism, womanism, and Chicanism. Feminism, the first one, concerned with white female in United States. Womanism, talking about Afro-American women, Afro-American, and Chicanism here concerned about Mexican-American female women. All of these movements are concerned with specific nation or women's identification. Chicanism and the Chicana, by the way, when we talk about male, we said Chicano, with O, the word with O, Chicano. This is concerned with male. But when we talk about female, we will see the word Chicana, not Chicano. So the Chicana feminist movement formally began to take shape in the 1970s during the height of the Chicano nationalist movement, as Chicana women were fighting alongside Chicano men in their struggle to get rid of U.S. political and social structure of inequalities. They began to realize the gender inequalities that existed within the outside of the movement. In May 1971, Chicana women gathered for the first National Chicana Conference to support several issues such as legalization of abortion, equal access to education, the establishment of child care centers, and the abolition of traditional marriage. Feminist writer here, and concerning the poetry or literature, we have some feminist writer like Gloria Insaldwa, Anna Castillo, and Sandra Cisneros, by the way. The feminist writer and the first one to talk about this was the feminist writer and theorist Gloria Insaldwa. Gloria Insaldwa has been influential for almost 2 decades. She was a Chicana feminist poet, writer, and a scholar who played a fundamental role in the development of Chicana feminist theory in the 1970s and beyond. She was a co-editor of 3 of the most influential publications in the emerge of Chicana feminism. Gloria's work theories, a borderline. This is a great work of Gloria Insaldwa that was historically and geographically situated in the United States Southwest, as well the late border lands of those marginalized by the power structure of U.S. society. Gloria Insaldwa was torn between 2 identities, and this is a conflict within all Chicana feminist or Chicana women, not a Chicana poetry, by the way. Both of them, or I can say that all of them, torn between 2 identities, as the Chicana as a new mestiza. Her book entitled Borderline is a semi-autobiographical work that includes prose and poem detail the invisible borders that exist between Latins and non-Latins, men and women. Gloria Insaldwa verbalized several Chicana realities, including those of her indigenous ancestors, her mother's Mexican heritage, and the undocumented status of women in the United States. In addition, the term new mestiza is another definition or another term, is a powerful image of the Chicana appropriation of her independence. Gloria Insaldwa states, "My Chicana identity is grounded in the Indian women's history of resistance. I feel perfectly free to rebel against my culture." She refers to the racial forces of her people that have oppressed her. As Insaldwa says, renaissance or resistance begins individually, but must also expand to the Chicana collective. Chicana or Chicano, by the way, directed their energies to trying to gain power by creating community and political organization that would address Chicano or Chicana, both for female or male, issues. And these organizations include the Mexican American Movement, the Association of Mexican American Educators, the Political Association of Spanish-speaking People, and the League of the United Latin American Citizens. The term Chicana, as I said before, Chicana concerned with female here. Chicano with O concerned with male. So the term Chicana here was coined during the Chicano movement by Mexican American women who wanted to establish social, culture, and political identities for themselves in America. Chicano refers to a woman who embraces her Mexican culture and heritage, but simultaneously recognizes the fact that she is an American. It is a self-selected term that usually applies to those Mexican American women who acknowledge a dominance of males in society and a history of discrimination and neglect in both household and the workplace. Moving to Ana Castillo, or talking about Ana Castillo, according to Ana Castillo, and by the way, this is a Mexican-American poet, the term Chicana or Chicano is a political term. It was an attempt in the last 20 years to label or categorize a politically conscious person of Mexican descent and sometimes of Latin descent in the U.S. Ana Castillo stated that it is okay to be bilingual and it's okay also to be proud of your Mexican heritage, your Indian heritage. It's okay to go out and celebrate the Mexican Independence Day parade. It's okay to love eating Mexican food. Castillo also says in Massacre of the Dreamers, and this is one of her book essay concerning her Chicano, while I descended from Mexican-American lineage, the fact that I was born and raised in the United States, a descendant of 1 and 2 generations of migrants from Mexico, and was raised in the inner city of Chicago. By the way, Ana Castillo have an Indian ancestors, mean that I have been completely alienated from indigenous connection to the Americas. I was born, raised, and spent most of my life in America. So Castillo chose the term Chicanizma, and by the way, the term Chicanizma is coined and invented by Ana Castillo herself. The term Chicanizma chose the term Chicanizma not because she wanted to exclude those that are not Mexican American, but to include the activist political ideology of Chicano. Or Chicana. She deliberately uses the X. By the way, when we linguistically explain the word Chicanizma, she deliberately uses the X in the spelling to pay homage. Chicanizma, it will pronounce it Chicanizma. To pay homage to their indigenous roots by incorporating the nahuatl language of the Mexican and their usage of X in their language. Chicanizma is a term created by Castillo herself to refer to Chicana feminism. Castillo employed the term Chicanizma to show that feminism is a term. Feminism, here we have a difference between feminism, womanism, and Chicanizma. Here are three trends concerning literature or concerning poets or poetry movement. Feminism is a term which is mainly concerned with white women, not for Mexican women. So she had to use a word that reflected their experience. Thus, she combined Chicana and feminist and became Chicanizma. This idea is very important to Castillo, who says it's our task as Chicanists to not only reclaim our indigenous, but also to insert the forsaken feminine into our consciousness. It is important to realize that many women of Mexican descent call themselves Mexicans, Latins, Mexican American, or even Hispanic for a variety of significant or often personal reasons. Some of them are immigrants. These are third generation, by the way, descendant of Mexico. And some more have been on this land since before the United States has been established. They call themselves different names because they are diverse people. They are students, housewives, factory workers, lawyers, mothers, grandmothers, professors, administrators, educators, and domestic workers. As I told before, and I said about Gloria Insaldwa, right? This land was Mexican once, always will be. Chicana feminism aims at achieving equality for all people, whereas feminism focuses mainly on white middle-class women. Here is a difference between Chicana and feminism. Chicana and feminism. Chicana feminism aims, as I told before, that it aims at achieving equality for all people. Feminism concerned only with white middle-class women. That is why many Chicanas decided they needed their own feminist theories separated from feminism. Delegado Penrell explains, one of the critics explained that Chicanizma is a framework that helps us think about issues that are grounded in social injustice. The movement itself is really about social injustice to communities. Feminism is a belief that men and women are equal and therefore deserve the same rights. Chicana feminism aimed at gaining equality for all people, whereas feminism focused mainly on white middle-class women. As a result, many Chicanas wanted their own feminism theories separated from feminism. With the Chicano movement, women were denied leadership roles and were asked to perform only the most traditional stereotype role, including cleaning, making coffee, executing the orders men gave, and serving their needs. Women also who did manage to assume leadership position were ridiculed as unfeminine. Chicanas want the right to control their bodies and have their own choices concerning them because there is oppression from not Chicano male, but from all the society. Healthcare also should be provided a staff that includes the Chicana and should be controlled by the Chicana community. Also, Chicanas wants education that is culturally relevant to them and is free of sexism. Chicanas want education for their children, employment and education go hand in hand. Concerning employment, even when Chicanas do have the required skill, they do not get equal pay for equal work. They are paid less than the Chicano and the Anglo male and less than the Anglo female. The role of the Chicana is typically that of the mother and the caregiver. While the family structure is important to the Chicana, the woman also wants to be recognized as an integrate part of the family and the larger community. Utilizing the talent of women as equals is important Also, child care is another topic concerning with Chicana, a very important issue to Chicana feminism. Those are the topics concerned with Chicana feminists, by the way. They want free child care that is both bilingual and bicultural. As I told before that, all of them torn between two identity, their identity or their original identity, their birth identity and their American identity. Also, they want to be able to seek employment without having to pay large amount for child care. In addition, they assert that the Chicano community should recognize that child care is not the duty of the women, but the responsibility of the community. Rape and abuse to women must always be taken seriously. Domestic abuse is not the right of the husband, by the way. Men must respect their women. It's important to the government that the Chicano community and the government should take these issues seriously and take a firm stance against rape and violence. What will be the topic or Ana Castillo contribution to Chicana women? Ana Castillo, as I said before, is a protest poet. Ana Castillo protests against oppression and the marginalization of Chicana women. And this protest can be felt in the disapproving satirical tone of the poems in which she exposes the unfair way women were treated by Mexican males. In one of her poems entitled No Dogs or Mexican Allowed, Ana Castillo exposes the way she and her mother were treated in a restaurant by saying, this is the poem, "We were on our way to Laredo from Chicago. When the bus stopped at a dinner in Texas somewhere, Mommy and I got off quietly while no one took our order. The driver called out, everyone on board, and it was time to go. That was a long time ago. But my memory is probably better than a dog." According to Ana Castillo, this poem, American society believe that Mexican people are not even equal to dogs. Americans have disdained the Mexicans. As the extract reveal, Ana Castillo and her mother as Chicana women were treated badly on their way from Chicago to Laredo. The bus has stopped at a restaurant. Castillo describes their getting off from the bus like a captured person. She emphasizes her feeling by forming the word unobtrusive, which means unnotable and invisible in an unpleasant way. Also, Chicana women suffer from oppression, as I told before, by their male opponent. Different from white feminism, Chicanizma supports brown women in their fight against gender prejudice as well as racial discrimination. Castillo continues to explain her dissatisfaction at male treatment of women. She says in one of her poems entitled, "How does it feel to be cruel to a woman? How does it feel to be cruel to a woman? To lift her up in front of her children, to have them shout, 'She wants you out of the house.'" Here Castillo makes an imaginary scenario about how a Mexican man deals with his wife. Castillo scolds the woman's husband. Okay.
Can you wind up in 2 to 3 minutes?
Okay. So let's go to our conclusion. Chicanas have fought side by side with their men in the struggle for equal opportunities in all areas of American life. Unfortunately, the major emphasis has always been on opening doors of opportunity for the Mexican American male. The female, in a sense, fights the battle but doesn't share in the spoils. Consequently, the Chicana's investigation of her pain allows her to get the essential self-knowledge and build a unique identity. Therefore, Castillo understand and experience with painful makes her reach an awareness of the source of oppression. Also, we can said, or furthermore, Castillo understands and experience with a painful makes her reach an awareness of the source of oppression, forming the basic of such suffering. And Castillo says in Massacre of the Dreamers also, the woman in the United States who is politically self-described as Chicana, mestiza in terms of race, and Latin or Hispanic in regards to her Spanish-speaking heritage, and who numbers in the millions in the United States cannot be summarized nor neatly categorized. And this is Massacre of the Dreamers, one of Castillo's quote. And thanks a lot, Doctor. I finished my presentation. Thanks a lot. I have been finished.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rasha, for explaining us about the Chicano feminism.
Yes.
And the difficulties that the women of Mexican communities were facing. Okay, let me ask any questions. We may take, Dr. Rasha can take maybe one or two questions. If you have any questions, she'll take it now, or else we move on to the next presenter. I don't see any questions here, even in the chat box. Okay, then thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Rasha, stay with us. Maybe by the time we end the plenary sessions altogether, there may be some questions. Okay, now, thank you very much. Now we have the second speaker.
Lovely.